Can you hear my kids?
Yeah, a little bit, but it's fine. It's like it's not too bad.
Guys,
I think, yeah.
well, that's until they start. Hold on. Let me do one more thing
It
quick.
sounds like you live next to a park. It's kind of like it's like
Is that,
distant, but
is that any better?
no, your voice is shit now. Just put it back.
All right. I'm just going to try to throw it on mute. Hold on. Give me 1 second. It just fucking starts screaming instantly. All right.
And now, let's take a listen to the Scalability School podcast.
Welcome back to another episode of the Scalability School podcast. Andrew is not with us. That sounds really dark. He's with us somewhere. He's busy right now. And so he left us to do intros, and this is what happens when you leave me to do intros. But we're excited to jump into some landing page stuff. I know I've been spending a lot of time talking about landing pages on this podcast, and basically, if you've talked to me about marketing in the last 60 days, it's something that I am talking about way too much. And today we're going to dig into a bunch of specific insights and just kind of have a back and forth yap session about things that we're seeing working, progression, how to test, what we'd like to see more of, how to do reporting, and a bunch of things in between. And so, yeah, it's going to be a little bit of a yap session. I will say I'm about 30 minutes into your operators podcast. So, you're big time in us, but no, it's cool, dude.
Well, it gets worse. Don't listen much longer. I for those our 10 tens of singles of listeners that we have on Scalability School, they were asking like this like whatever, ask the same 10 questions at the end of every podcast. Like what's one metric that's like overrated? And I said profit. And I immediately was gassed. It was like after like I had all day of calls. And I was like, yeah, it's because of cash flow. It was the worst fucking answer I could have ever given, but you know what? Here we are. So I like reached out to Aaron, like, can we take this out? He's like, it's already edited. He's like, we could. And I'm like, I'm not an asshole. Just put it through. It's fine. Everyone will think I sound like decent. And they're like, he doesn't want profit. What the fuck is going on? So anyways, yeah, go listen to it.
There's a big crossover of people who listen to this and that. Maybe, so there's for sure. Like we probably have
the
like
problem
6
is
people from that.
Probably already listened to that by the time they listen to this. So
for sure.
anyways, but yeah, let's get into it. So I think first topic, we've talked about this a bit. I think I mentioned it actually on that episode, but creative land or congruency. Do you want to like kick this off and then I'll add my perspective?
Yeah. One of the biggest like frustrations that I see still, I spend a lot of time looking at ad accounts and libraries, and I like watch an ad and it'll be like, help your dog sleep better at night. And then you click through to the page and it's like, okay, I landed on the PDP, which like might be fine, but there's literally nothing about sleep on the page.
Yeah.
Like maybe a comparable for like Hollow, like, because I know we always use Hollow as an example. It's like if you were talking about hiking to somebody and then you send them to like a page that like was using images of the compression socks, has nothing to talk about with hunting.
Yeah,
One more
totally.
example. We were looking at is like a betting company. And they like one of their top performing ads was talking about like how it makes bedtime easier, and like kids making their bed was so much easier. And then, like there's the only pictures on the website are a bunch of old people making their bed. It's like, dude, where are the kids at, brother? So anyways, point on landing page congruency is like you're starting to tell a story in the ad. And then if you're not continuing that story on the landing page, I think there's just a pretty big missed opportunity. And I think the recurring word of the year for us has been, and you said this a lot, is like just intentionality and like being more thoughtful at every single step of the way. And so creative and lander congruency is like the way that we're seeing this. So I know you guys are spending a lot of time thinking about that. And it's like, I think one of these last episodes you said you didn't want to talk too much about it because it's one of the things that's been unlocking stuff, but I think cat's out of the bag. So I don't know if you want to expand on things that you're seeing working and how you guys have been thinking about it.
Yeah. So we built a report just recently, and it's just landing page reporting, which I know we're going to talk about that here in a minute. But one of the things that I wanted to do is look at. So I'll talk about Mars, for example, on this one. And Mars actively is running 33 landing pages, which is quite a few, and I think probably more than the average brand. But I think what we're starting to do well is we're matching. We are not going to launch an ad if it's going to talk about cortisol, or if it's going to talk about, strength or willpower or whatever, if we do not have a landing page that also talks about that. So that's like a new thesis in the company that we won't do it. We just like won't launch it. And then the creative strategist basically say, hey, I don't feel like I have a landing page that's congruent enough. Go make me one this week. So what's crazy about that is now I get to go look at all these ads that are running to these 33 different landing pages and actually see in my report that I built, it's just like a Claude generated report with a drop down, what are the top spending ads to that landing page? And I can go figure out, is there congruency happening or not? Because there's something that's happening that this ad is getting more spend, which usually means, okay, something Meta likes it, or yes, performance is probably there. But like to your point about the sheets example, like if we're talking about cortisol in the ad, and then we jump on a page and it's literally has nothing, it doesn't even say cortisol on it. Why are we running that ad to that page? So that's been like really, really helpful. I think that not a lot of people look at landing page performance and then look at ad creative performance. They don't usually look at them like combined. And I think the cool thing about looking at it from a landing page URL first and then the ad creative that actually goes to it, you're able to actually reverse kind of into, is it doing what it's supposed to do, versus just looking at top ads and then just like seeing, it's just like it's hard to kind of resonate, is that matching the page or not. I think it's easier to go the other way around.
Yeah. And so you said 33 pages live, and I'm sure we'll talk about maybe if we have enough time, we'll talk about like how we actually test and how you think about testing. But those are like individually, it doesn't sound like you're using backend split testing tool to split them. Like they're all active URLs listed inside of Meta. That's not really my question. My question is really more like, what is the limit to the quantity of pages and like how specific, like, because you can continue to go deeper and deeper
Yeah.
and more narrow.
Yeah.
And so I guess like, how are you thinking about the width of the pages?
So we break this down by pillar, just like we would with an ad creative. So we start with pillars. So we've got like, aging, cortisol, energy, weight loss, GLP-1 is like a huge category, TRT versus natural. Like these are all pillars. So you're going to start with the pillars. So like maybe we have 33 pages, but we maybe have like 10-ish pillars, right? To choose from. And then obviously dependent on the pillar, like if we see traction, we'll have different pages. So like we might start with a listicle. Listicles are the easiest one to start with. We might start with 10 reasons why. If we see 10 reasons why it's working really well for an aging pillar, and performance is there and spend is there, and we're like finding some congruency of ads and like traction is there, then we might go take it 10 reasons and punch it over to an advertorial. And then we'll maybe make a variant of the 10 reasons that is like, maybe the images go from, in the 10 reasons go just from images to then GIFs, or like maybe we go from 10 down to 5 and then we add in a whole different comparison section grid to the page. That's kind of how we think about it, is like we start always with the listicle. We start before the listicle, even choosing that template, we start with like the pillar of the page that we're going to try and match the pillar of the ad creatives.
Yeah. And then will you keep the advertorial sorry. Okay. Will you keep the listicle, the quiz, and the advertorial all live as long as they're still performing? So like same creative, just different landing pages with the match messaging?
So the only way that we're doing the same actual ad creative to a different lander is to quiz. So if a page is working on the 10 reasons why, we'll kind of like graduate it up to the quiz. But outside of that, it'll always be a net new piece of ad creative that we'll try. Yeah. So no, we don't have any of like the duplicate stuff. We used to do more of that. We started to see like performance take a hit. So again, based on what Meta is telling us, like they see that as the same thing. So we're trying to actually build it out as something different. Even though if the landing page is different, we're treating it as if it could be. The only funnel that we're okay with it being the same exact creative is the quiz, because it's such a different type of experience and funnel. So that's how we think about it.
Yeah, that's cool. I have, there's an example that the reason I asked that is because I have an example. I tweeted this recently, so I'm just pulling it up so I have the numbers in front of me. But we had a client that was sending all their traffic to a PDP, but it was sending out all the traffic to the PDP. So you can see that at the bottom there. But it spent, the PDP spent $41,000, and we duplicated that same piece of creative and sent it to a 5 reasons why page. And they ended up over that time period, at least spending the same amount of money. 5 reasons why, which has graduated to many other things since then. like spent the same amount but performed substantially more efficiently. And then everybody's obsessed with CPMR, so I kind of made a meme out of that and just saying like CPMR was also lower for this, but like those are the same ads. And what was interesting about that, as I found it, I was looking at the delivery of the different what is the delivery difference between the two of these, specifically the age breakdown. And if you look at the age breakdown for the PDP, it was like 45 and up pretty clearly. And that was one of the insights that landed on the page. So like the headline says X reasons why women 45 and up are blah 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 blah. I was looking at the breakdown again for the 5 reasons why and how that changed. Really, the only thing that changed is that all of a sudden 45 and up started to just rip even more. So 45 and up was spending more, it was more efficient, but the 55 and up was still good. It just didn't get any more spend proportionally. And 65 and up was also still really good, just getting, and it didn't get any more spend proportionally, but it was the same ad. So there's a couple points in there that I'm just kind of like yapping through. The first is that
Yeah.
we find that having multiple pages live has been interesting because it meets people at different points of where they're at. Like to your point, quiz is maybe, hey, I'm a little less aware of what's going on. I'm not sure if you'd agree with that, but like it's a little more top of funnel in the way that people traditionally talk about it. Listicle is maybe somewhere in the middle, depending on the positioning. And then PDP is like obviously as close as you can probably get without sending people directly to checkout, which I've seen some ad accounts that try to do that. And then the other point is like, okay, well, there's an interesting progression on that 5 reasons why page and those insights, which is, okay, we've got this messaging on this page that says 45 and up. What if we just duplicate the headline and go 55 and up and still leave the same ad live? How would that change things? A lot of philosophy around like how fragmented the ad account starts to get. But I said something on a call recently that like seemed to make it clear to people, but like Andromeda is reading the page, not just the ad. And that was interesting for me to see because now, yes, Meta thinks that the creative is the same, but it's very clearly different delivery. So you're thinking about that whole funnel as the ad, really.
You said a couple things there that I think are super interesting that them personally like take and break down, which is like the age breakdown by landing page performance. That's something that I haven't thought about in a while. I look at it by creative, but I don't look at it by lander. So that'll be fascinating to dig into. And then I've never looked at CPMR by lander like destination URL. So that just another one to be like, I wonder what that does. And if some landing pages, which I think would make sense, inherently have a better CPMR. So two good call outs there for sure.
Yeah, and that was the thing that was so interesting about that is, I mean, I mean CPMR to me, I'm still the cat. I don't know if I've like fully come around to that as like a useful metric yet. I think it's interesting, but like ROAS was substantially better, and then we could spend more behind it. So it's like I didn't need the CPMR signal to tell me that. And I'm sure we'll get into how we test things, but like it was very clear that that just like consumed all the spend. So we still find success sending the same creative to different landing pages because you actually do unlock a different audience, as we saw in that age breakdown.
Brad, I'm sure people that are listening to this probably know what CPMR is, but do you want to explain what that is? Because we've said it like 5 times, but
Yeah, yeah. So generally, people look at CPM, so cost per 1,000 impressions. CPMR is basically just the reach version of that. So impressions are non-unique. Reach is a unique impression. So it's just the amount that you spend to reach 1,000 unique people. The one of the reasons I don't like it is like inherently it just goes down over time. Like the second you spend $1 on Meta, your next piece of reach, like it just inherently goes down. There's only so many people you can reach in the world, and if you narrow it down to the US and then you narrow it down to your target market, you just run out of people. And you kind of alluded to this earlier, and it's one of the things you talked about in the operators episodes, which is like you think about starting a product that just has so many freaking angles that you can unlock because that's how you can open up. I mean, TAM is one way to think about this, but like specific angles is how you can say different things to different people. But yeah, CPMR is cost per 1,000 unique reached people. Sweet. Yeah. So you were talking about the progression of landing pages and the types of landing pages. I don't know if you want to speak to. You said you start with listicles and then go into some of those other things. Is there like a certain progression that you go to? A certain reason why you start with listicles? Maybe just talk about the formats for a sec.
yeah, I mean, it's just ease, right? So once you have a 10 reasons why template for the most part, if you go look at any big 9-figure brands, like they all run pretty much the same template. So the nice thing about it is it requires copy and it requires like static image design for the graphics. So I think just for, ease of speed, it's the best. And I think it's such a simple concept of like, here's 10 reasons why, here's 5 reasons why. It just it's inherently how people think about things. They just like lists. So that's usually where we start. From there, then obviously getting advertorials to work. I used to be like a advertorials will never work. I think I've said this on this podcast. We've started to get them to work, and I think it just has to do with copywriting. Like it has to have the right ad creative that usually is a bit more top of funnel, and it then can do, if the creative then kind of answers the it closes the loop of what the creative might produce. Like, people talk about native ads, which is like, it looks like a phone from your, or a photo from like your parents' phone, like that they just accidentally took almost. Like that's the piece of creative, like something sitting on a counter. It's like shitty lighting, interesting, and just kind of, you're like, what is this? That's the whole concept of like a proper native ad or native creative. And so those images that just kind of prompt, curiosity to then an advertorial style page, where then it might be more of a story that you're telling, I think can work well, but it's just harder to do. So start with the 10 reasons, then go down that kind of rabbit hole of advertorial. And then we might just do like kind of its own unique blend, which is like different sections. There might be kind of like a mini 10 reasons why built within the page. Then there might be a us versus them. And then there might be, an FAQ section. There might be all sorts of like these kind of unique things, a longer story. Maybe there's like a founder story section in it. That's kind of like the third one. And then the fourth, which is quiz, which I think, there's a couple of people on Twitter that talk about quizzes all the time. I mean, they are underrated, I think. Like, I think, the problem is people it seem like it's going to be like super hard to build. They're not really hard to build. There's a tool called Hayflow, which is what we used for the beginning in MarsMen. We've now built the tool internally. Our head of ecom built it in Claude and then self-deployed it, which is sick. So we can do a lot more kind of custom stuff with it. But Hayflow is great. Like if you're wanting to try to build a quiz, like just go study again, top brands. Most of them build them very similarly. It's just another great entry point. So it's kind of like listicle, advertorial, dynamic page, and then quiz is kind of a whole other one. So that's how we think about it.
Yeah, and within so like going back to listicles for a second, at some point, I'm sure you started with a 3 reasons or a 5 reasons, and then a 7, and then a 10. So there's like a progression that you've gone through where you started. Hey, we started with a 5, and then
Yeah,
we went
yeah.
to 10, and it made a big difference. And then we added. I mean, the amount of times I go into an ad library, I click the landing page, and it's like, oh, this looks like MarsMen's landing page. Is like
Yeah.
astounding. But like there's comparison charts at the top or somewhere on the bottom. I know Primal Queen probably, I think Primal Queen was one of the original people to add like the timeline to it.
Yeah.
So it's like,
Yeah.
what are the elements to a listicle that you've seen really make a difference?
Yeah, I mean, the comparison chart is a no-brainer. That one, and then just like a super clear final CTA section. And then usually like some type of social proof, usually above that. So it goes like comparison chart, 10 reasons, either FAQ or social proof section of just like review style content, or like a story from a customer. And then it's like super clear. This is the only CTA on the page to move you over to a PDP. That's usually it. And again, like I think I might have mentioned this on the last episode, but like now we're testing like taking the PDP and injecting it below. So not even like that CTA section. So I think we'll see more people inherently copy that. If it's I don't know if that was us really doing that for the most part, but if you go look at our pages, there's a lot of shoppable versions of PDPs below listicles and stuff like that now that we run. So yeah, I mean, I think that's mostly it. Candidly, these ideas aren't always us or mine. Like, the OG goats of D2C and direct response were like Javi and Blissy. Those are the two. I got to meet the founders and get to become good friends with them, and inherently ended up copying some of their ideas or talk to them about concepts. But like the 5 reasons why originally was because Blissy was doing it, and then they rolled out like 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 12, 15 reasons why, and like they just kept adding more and kept seeing better performance, and we didn't ratchet up to 15 or anything like that yet. But yeah, Vahe and the team over at Blissy, just absolute goats with that. And then I think the Javi team were the ones that were figuring out some of these unique elements to add into these pages, just to add a little more sauce to them, and maybe it would answer like a little more context, which is usually what you're looking to do. It's just like, what is the missing context of this page that it would be great for the customer to know before they see the price.
All right, friends, quick break. This episode is brought to you by Northbeam, the marketing attribution platform that we love over here at the pod. And if you're a marketer, you probably agree incrementality testing is broken. Tests require a ton of labor, spreadsheets, statistical reference. Designing tests is slow and error prone. Once the tests are running, you have to monitor them daily in case anything happens. If you don't, a test could blow through thousands of dollars while being totally useless. And how are you supposed to know what the test is in the first place and when? There's a million factors that make incrementality testing really difficult. But good news, our friends at Northbeam have completely changed the game. They fixed incrementality. Only Northbeam Incrementality automates your incrementality test design and monitoring while protecting you from the major mistakes that plague incrementality testing. Northbeam builds tests using your own MTA data, launches them directly in ad platforms, and automatically monitors them throughout. If something threatens validity, you're alerted before it ruins the result. With Northbeam, you can launch tests in platform with a single click inside Northbeam, saving you tons of time and reducing any chance of errors. And when the test concludes, results flow straight into your MTA, meaning you can easily see results alongside the rest of your data. This is automated and accurate testing so you and your team can spend with confidence. Incrementality was broken. Northbeam fixed it.
For the customer to know before they see the price.
Yeah. That's such an interesting like place that I think we even kind of talked about this really briefly where like that's where like you can probably innovate quite a bit is like, okay, I know what I'm trying to answer. Like I know what a comparison chart answers. It shows very quickly how you stack up against other things that people are considering. Is there a different way you can communicate that other than a comparison chart? Or like people want to know what the product is going to do for them. Like, what does the transformation look like? A before and after is a way of showing that transformation. But that timeline that I mentioned, Primal Queen, and I know a lot of other people have something like it. But like that timeline also kind of paints the picture of here's what you can expect, and here's the transformation you can expect along these kind of timelines. It's such an interesting place because like that's where you can actually innovate. But that's also where it's very difficult because you have to figure out like what is the actual format and what is that section and how does it get delivered. I don't know if you've thought about like unique ways to deliver those elements, but that's something that I've been spending a lot of time thinking about. So I have two more follow up questions to that. The first thing is you kind of mentioned it in the notes on something you wish you had more insight into, which was like what elements that we just talked about, like and
Yeah.
how they drive impact. How are you thinking about that? Like, I think heat map might be a tool that kind of tries to map sections more specifically to revenue. I'm not sure exactly how they do it, but how are you thinking about that?
I think that's just A/B testing pages. It's like the page with the element, the page without the element. I think that's really all you can do. And the issue is like you just need the velocity to actually like do that. And I think you're probably better off. Most brands that are spending less than 7 figures a month on ads is just like testing a whole new page versus like, hey, I add one new section. Is that going to get the lift? Like if you don't have enough velocity, like the test is going to have to run for months to technically validate. So you can obviously take the first couple days or hours of performance on intelligence, however you want, and send it, which I've done in the past, and things have generally worked out for us. So sure, but that's how we do it. It's just like design the whole new section, usually test it against the highest spend or highest traffic volume lander, and then run those side by side. Where it's just like we add one new section into the page. Did it add any performance or not? And then it's just a URL change. I don't know, this is tin hat theory. I do have a weird, there's something in my brain that says that Meta doesn't like A/B tests on the back end of URLs. I don't know what, but I think it's the fact that Andromeda is scraping the content on the page and it's seeing a load happen or it's seeing some JavaScript happen where it's like, I don't like this as much. Who knows? Maybe it just gives you like you have 100 points score and it takes one away of those 100. Like maybe it's something, but I just have a weird feeling that it has an issue. No proof of that, but it's just something I think about.
Yeah, it's like, is it confusing? Is it confusing signal for the reasons you just mentioned because of the way that it loads, but also like if a different type of person is resonating with that page, but it's technically the same ad creative. Like it's different if they were two different pieces of like actually two different ads in the ad account, but like it's actually delivering based on how that ad is responding. So like, is it sending confusing signal back because different types of people are responding to them in different ways? my tinfoil hat is with you on that, so I get it. That leads into something interesting. So I'm skipping ahead a little bit with this one, which is how you think about actually testing the pages. Like, how do they get into the ad account? And like, when do you decide to actually use an intelligence on the back end versus not?
Yeah, usually it's just content swaps now for the most part. Like we're adding a new element, or we're adding potentially like a whole different, like a 10 reasons why listicle that pushes you to the PDP versus a 10 reasons why listicle that has the buy box or the whole PDP below it. That's when we're using intelligence, where we're taking kind of swings like that. When we're launching things, I mean, again, with the creative volume you have, with the spend volume, you have the ability to test more. So I'm in a little bit of a unique scenario there, where just because we just have to launch so much shit every week to keep up, because just so many things burn out. So we're launching, like, realistically probably 3 net new landing page funnels a week. I'd say around that number feels right. For Mars, and I'd say we're a bit less than that for Hollow, maybe 1 to 2 a week for Hollow, net new landers. And yeah, we just launch them like we normally would. So it's like, depending on the products, it will go on a different campaign, and then or depending on the funnel, will go on a different campaign. If we have them broken out by pillar or not, sometimes we do that, sometimes we don't, and then it'll just go into its own ad set with its own budget, just like it normally would with like a creative test.
Yeah. We've played around a lot with it when it's a net new page. So like we like to build around, like, start with the ad as the insight. It's like, okay, what can we build off of this, and how do we make a page based on this? And usually it's like, can you actually build it from one specific ad? Now, obviously, if you can look at the entirety of your ad account and say, the pillar point that you're making, if there's a bunch of different things that could benefit from a more specific page, great. We've when rolling out landing page tests, we'll start with like an ad, right? So the one I referenced earlier in the tweet that I was talking about, that was built off of one founder ad that had some very specific insights about the delivery of that ad, what that specific ad was saying. We just duplicated it within the same campaign, same ad set, and just let Meta dictate the spend between it. And that landing page, literally the next day, was spending more than the PDP and continue to scale well in excess of it. But we've also had other wins where, like, winning to me with landing pages is not just it spends more or performs better or is more efficient than the other page. It's like, can you add net new spend volume to the ad account? So an example of this recently is, if we had, if I'm using my hands to describe this, so it's like, if your spend volume is 100%, your current funnel is set up to get you 100% to spend whatever you spend. Maybe I should use a dollar amount. You're spending 5K a day on this funnel, and you launch a lander. You have your PDP is spending 5K a day. You launch a lander and it adds 1K a day. As long as it goes up to 6K a day in spend and adds net new volume, to me that's a win, because you're
Totally.
again, you're kind of meeting different people where they're at. Like that's a win. It's not about just like getting an excess, and that's why I like duplicating the existing ads and letting Meta dictate the spend between them, because it shifts over time. Like I was looking at an ad
Hmm.
account the other day where it's like, we launched a quiz, it took over, then it fell back, then it's taken over
Hmm.
again. And like it just keeps
Hmm.
going in and out depending on the season. Now I don't know if there's like an actual seasonal reason for the change, but it's just like ads, the landing pages and how they perform shifts over time. So as much as possible, I try to like leave things on. But I'm also a little bit of a CBO, leave things on maxi. So
Yeah.
that's
Yeah.
probably part of it.
I think you're right for the most part. I think we're just a little extra critical of, because we have so much volume of creative going in. It's like, okay, if we have to launch this to validate the creative, we might as well try to match the page to it versus just like duping it again and trying it to go to another one. That might not be as congruent. So I think generally you're right in thinking that way. And the whole idea of adding incremental spend is the goal at the end of the day. I mean, like, yeah, you might get a landing page at 5 reasons that outperforms your PDP. If you have a set monthly budget that you can spend into because of inventory constraints or whatever, sure, great, huge win to get incremental, ROAS lift. But the whole idea of this is building new funnels so you get more scale. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's how we
Yeah,
think
because
about it.
if you're gonna try to launch, you make you're looking at your pillar and you're trying, it's like, okay, we got one piece of creative. Now we need to launch it to the 3 different variants of landing pages that we have live. Like all of a sudden
Yeah.
you have to analyze performance on that same piece of creative, those landing pages. And it's a lot of work on top of the fact, like, is there actually marginal benefit in that? Debatable.
Yeah.
Debatable.
Yeah. I would agree.
Sweet.
Yeah.
How long are you letting things rip then? Like what is your actual test and your patience for those tests look like?
Yeah, it changes. It changes all the time. I feel like sometimes we are more patient, sometimes we're not. I think at the spend threshold that Mars is at specifically now, things are just burning out so quickly that we turn them off fairly quick. So like, I mean, if we're not seeing the numbers that we want in like 48 hours, like we're usually killing that ad. And when it comes to landing pages, it's like if this is something that we've done, if the ad does work or doesn't work, we'll duplicate it over to a different funnel. For us, it might be quiz or PDP, and then we'll launch it in what we like the graveyard campaign with a cost control and see if then that works. Cause it's like, was it actually the creative's problem or was the landing page problem that it was going to? So we do that a lot. If like the soft metrics on the creative looks good, but the performance was shit. So that is like the other way that we think about it. We're pretty hot to kill things, but it doesn't mean we're not going to dupe it and throw it in the cost control campaign and see if we can get some more scale out of it. Going to a different page.
Yeah. And then I think this rolls nicely into reporting. But before we do that, we, Jordan's my business partner. For those of you that don't know, we've been like flirting with this idea of like the persona specific PDP, because PDPs can still work really well. And I know, I've talked to a bunch of people in the space, and like just expanding your PDP and giving more information that answers questions and customizing your product photos to, I know you gave that insight, and then all of a sudden, like last year, now everybody's product page, their carousel has a bunch of images that are dialed in a certain way. Like, have you flirted with the idea of just like making the product page a little bit more persona specific? Like, okay, we just
Yeah.
changed the product title to match. It's like, I mean, you've the extreme version of this with Hollow is like compression works, so we made fucking impression socks or
Yeah.
compression
Yeah.
socks. Like,
Right. Right.
so you just do go the product route, but
Right.
PDP
No,
customization. Yeah.
this is the next level of where we're at now for Mars. So it's like we've taken the ad to landing page congruency. We've got that. Now we move the PDP to the bottom of the page. Does that perform better than pushing the PDP? Let's say it does. Now it's much easier to edit that quote unquote PDP section if it's all one long funnel. And I think this is the one thing that was really interesting. I used to look at brands like even Grooms a little bit, but Primal Queen. I'm like, these pages are so long. How do that many customers get through this whole page? I think if the content is right and it's relevant, I don't think the length of the page is actually going to hurt to a certain degree. It's not going to hurt general conversion rate if it's congruent. If you're talking about weight loss and then you go to a page and it's 10 reasons why this product is going to help with weight loss this season, 10 reasons, great. And then you get into a product page section and it's like the best weight loss products, here's your discount, right? I think, and then all the carousel images match. Why would that not do better? So that's where we're at now, where we are starting to tinker with actual quote unquote PDP, because obviously we're single SKU, which helps us do that much easier than if you're, 10,000 SKU apparel company.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, if you've got people that are like, they want to solve a problem so badly, you've got them captivated, like they're going to continue to read until you give them the solution. I think I told you guys separately, I saw this insane ad from Dr. Gundry, which I think is Golden Hippo. It's a Golden Hippo
Yeah,
brand, if
I
I'm
think
not
so.
mistaken.
Yeah, I think so.
Dude, like I clicked the ad on Twitter because I was like, this is going to be insane. And I clicked it, and the only like, it's a 5-minute VSL, and you have to watch it. It's actually more than 5 minutes, I'm pretty sure. You have to watch the video. You can't do
Yeah.
anything else on the page but
Yeah.
watch the video. And at some point, I couldn't even wait that long. I literally tried to leave my phone. I was like, I can't wait anymore. So I abandoned the page. It was like, you have to watch the whole thing and then get to the point. Now, I'm not trying to get sued by anybody by saying crazy things, but like they're promising some pretty insane things. And so like the person who's watching that is like desperate for a solution. And so like they're going to watch the whole thing. And like, people talk about like levels of interest. Like there's people who sit down and watch a 3-hour podcast, and like it's because they're interested in it. Like they'll sit through the whole thing and they'll stop when they don't want to read it anymore. That's the interesting thing about pages is you can just like, progressively build more and more, as long as it's not like killing your page load speed, and all that good stuff. So
Yeah. Yeah. We've tried VSLs, failed. I think we'll try it again. But we didn't crack it the first go at it. So it's something interesting. My lessons from the VSL, like going down the rabbit hole, is you basically just push up an insane AOV. That's the whole intent. So it's like you can get someone to watch 45 minutes of a video before you finally present the solution as this magical capsule. You need them because you've had so much drop off throughout that. You need that customer to buy this insane AOV bundle, which is usually just like a bunch of crazy post purchase upsells like stacked after another. So And unless you can do that, like the full blown VSL situation just doesn't make a ton of sense, which is kind of why we killed it to some degree.
Yeah. Is there anything related to, I know I still want to hit on reporting. Is there anything related to like merchandising, offers, how it shows up in the product page, post purchase that like you think is worth hammering through really quick?
I can't think of anything off the top of my head. We did some questions post purchase around. Here's one that's interesting. In our quiz, we ask a really interesting question. As like one of them, I won't say necessarily which one because I don't want everyone stealing the shit. But we ask an interesting question in the quiz, and that question has given me so many ideas for new pillars because we kind of leave it open ended. There's actual prompts, but like it's open ended enough the way that we let them fill it out, that I think it's been really interesting. So I would say like if you feel like you're getting stuck with, hey, I don't know what pillars to go build for creative or even for landers, build a quiz and ask a question that like prompts these people that don't know much about your brand or your product yet to like give you some feedback, and you might come up with something really interesting. So that's one that's been, I'll just say, is like a teaser of something that's been generating interesting ideas for me and coming up with new concepts for new pillars.
Yeah. Does your quiz builder, I know you use something else and you guys recently switched. Does it tell you, like, are you guys paying attention to who ends up buying and how they answered the questions and then using that information? Because, like, you can get, like, you have the quiz answers in aggregate, but like
Mhm.
the most useful ones are the people that end up buying, right? And
Right.
obviously you can see where drop off looks like and things like that. But if you, because like post purchase is, it's also a very different experience. Like this person also bought, they self selected, and they're kind of, they may be answering it different than pre purchase. So there's like, there's almost value in understanding what the people who didn't buy said, and then also, okay, the people who did buy, how did they answer these questions, and just filtering it by purchaser actually.
Don't have that data, but we're gonna figure that out because that's super interesting. That's super interesting.
Yeah, it's
I
like it feels
mostly
like
look at
there's a
like,
little bit from both.
yeah, I mean, right now I'm kind of going down the rabbit hole of like hacking the drop off rate. I'm looking at like drop off by question, and I'm like, okay, what can I change this slide or question to be so I can keep the progression happening. Um, that's mostly where my time is spent right now in the quiz. It's just like thinking about those drop off rates and figuring out what about that question or what about the answers that they have as options to select are slowing them down or making them bored and saying this is too many questions. So, but yeah, that would be pretty that'd be pretty important information to get. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I've seen some insanely long quizzes. I'm always surprised by like, I don't know, this idea of friction. Like people, I feel like people are really coming around to thinking that like friction is not necessarily a bad thing. Especially with quizzes, because like quizzes are like starting to self-select. Maybe it's the open loop concept. I said that on a call today. It was super cringy. It's like the open loop of like, okay, I want the answer. Like I've started this. I want to know what it's going to tell me. I want to know what the answer is. What
Yeah.
is this like miracle thing that I could take to solve all my problems? But yeah, well, they'll have to tell me how that goes because
Yeah.
now I'm invested in the outcome. uh, that rolls really nicely into like landing page reporting and how you're thinking about reporting. You kind of talked about the reports that you just built out that you found really interesting. Um, I'll just really quickly say a couple things that I pay attention to from a landing page reporting perspective, and then I know there's a lot more that I would like to dig further into, but because of the way that we launch tests in CBO, spend velocity is like aggregate spend for that funnel or that product or that campaign is one thing. Spend velocity is another thing. And then once we start to see some validation, that's where I'm going in. I'm looking at the heat maps and I'm saying, okay, this is how far people are making down the page. Here's what people are clicking most often. And I'll give one specific tactical thing that came out. Like you should watch recordings. It's really helpful to watch recordings. We ran a quiz funnel one time and I started watching recordings. I watched fucking 20 in a row. Nobody took the quiz. It's like, it's working. And it was converting insanely well. Nobody was taking the quiz. Literally nobody. We added shop the product button. It said start the quiz or shop the product right below it. That literally revenue per session went up 20% by just adding that. Because like, and if you don't want to take the quiz, cool, you can go to the product page and check it out. And then the people that want to take the quiz, great. Like that was so. I watched the recordings, and that's kind of like the recordings are tricky because small samples, and it's easy to get distracted by that. But total spend velocity are kind of some core things that I pay attention to. What else are you looking at as you're evaluating landing page reporting?
Yeah. I mean, the biggest one is the creative that's going to that landing page. I kind of talked about it earlier. It's like start with the landing page URL, see how performance is. Is it beating baseline versus the rest of the account? What is the spend volume versus the rest of the account, which then gives you some indication of like, okay, maybe there's some ability for the ROAS to be slightly lower on that if you're getting more scale out of it. And then what are the actual ads that are performing for that later? That is the main thing I'm paying attention to right now. I think like the content on the page, watching screen recordings, watching heat maps, or like looking at heat maps or click maps. I think that's like the next level. But because we're launching so many new ones and we're trying to build this congruency thing, I'm mostly just trying to figure out like what are the ads that are actually working within this lander, which are the ones that are not, that are getting a bunch of spend that are kind of like failing at that combination of congruency. So that's mostly it. I don't really have anything else super special. We built like this thing that kind of shows them on like a chart format, so I can watch landers like scale or fall off throughout periods of time, and then also this like scatter plot kind of version, which then breaks it out by like spend and then ROAS. So it's like you can kind of figure out like, okay, the ROAS kind of degrades, but then some of these like landers have a lot more scale to them, so it's easier to kind of identify those winners. Again, nothing too crazy. Mostly just like that combo of what ad is actually now working for this very specific lander. Uh,
Yeah. Well, it feels like getting into like metrics like bounce rate and obviously like revenue per session, profit per session, conversion rate. Those things are like helpful, but it's like
yeah,
you need a success metric first, which is maybe total spend, spend velocity, actual efficiency. It's like that's gonna be way more insightful than looking at a bounce rate. Well, it's like bounce rate might not actually tell you anything. Like you know, the test that I talked about earlier, going from a PDP to a listicle, bounce rate dropped a lot, which was that's a helpful insight. But like it also just performed better. I didn't need bounce rate to tell me that. It's like, okay, people
yeah,
are spending more time reading the content on the page. Great.
yeah.
But is bounce rate like what is bounce rate going to tell me that that spend velocity didn't is something that I've been thinking a lot about. Like if you're doing nothing, like you're listening to this and you're like, I'm bought in. Like, yes, sign me up. I would love to test landing pages. How do I do it? I think it's kind of daunting. I know like AI is making it progressively less daunting to get pages rolled out, which is great. But is there any place that you would suggest people go to start? And a caveat to that is like, why do you think it takes most brands forever to build and test and deploy a landing page? Like, are CRO agencies just like super slow? Are they like what's yeah? How would you start? What's preventing people from just like launching pages?
The answer is like it's not that hard anymore, but you need to put all the pieces together correctly, which is the template has to be correct and it needs to be like a winning template. What would I do there? Go look at in Motion, in any other of your favorite tools, go look at the brands that are spending the most. Any trend track, any of these tools that can like scrape things, go find the brands that are spending the most, they're pushing traffic. Most of them have the same looking templates for the most part, especially for listicles. Just copy that. Like start there, copy that template. So many people have copied ours already, right? Hollow, MarsMen, it's whatever. It is what it is. Template, I don't really care about. Copy it away. Then really what it comes down to is just copywriting and then the images that go with the pages. I think the copywriting is the hardest part. I think writing good copy is much harder than people make it out to be. Throwing it into Claude without a ton of pre-prompting is going to get you shit copy with a bunch of M dashes. And like, I think people see into that now. So I think doing copy right is hard. And I think that's probably like the biggest thing that slows things down. And then if a brand is very brand forward, they want everything like designed to match brand standard. That's another thing that can slow shit down. So I think the one thing that I always say is like your landing pages can definitely be uglier than your website and your ads can be even uglier than your landing pages. So like be okay with a little bit of like, yeah, use your brand font, use your brand colors, use those things. But like if it's not perfect, get started. Like it's you're just wasting time and lack of efficiency from getting started. So yeah, I mean there's great tools out there. I mean, I think a lot of people use Replo. A lot of people, we're friends with Ryan Doney who owns PageDeck. It's a great tool for this. Like low price point, quickest way in. PageDeck is like an incredible solution. We use it for homestead clients. Like it's a great one. So I'd say between that, Replo, and then just kind of using the resources of the bigger guys, like from a template perspective, that's what I would do. Copywriting, again, like that's what's going to take you some time. And I think spend some time on that. Don't just like rip it into Claude and say, hey, make hollows 10 reasons why for my, gummy brand or some shit. Right. So I think that's the part that needs the time and attention, and that also needs like a proper marketer and someone that understands direct response copywriting.
Yeah, it seems like the technical limitations that used to exist, I mean, with things like PageDeck and Replo are like starting to go by the wayside, but even further than that, like each of them has their own AI features for like building these things, and like those are progressively getting better. And so what matters the most is the content on the page. And if you're still like stuck, like struggling with the technical stuff, like maybe just DM one of us and we get, maybe me, not you. You got way too much shit to do. Let's show you how to like overcome some of those things, because like technical limitations should not be the limit to testing this at this point. But yes, it does take time. You actually have to like, okay, watch your ads, figure out what they're saying. Why do you think people are like, just like you do creative analysis, just extend that to what the page says. You could probably see a lot of success by doing that. Cool. Is there anything else that you wanna add on or say before we wrap things up? Any beefs? Andrew's not here, so we have to do beefs in his honor. I don't know if I have any beefs.
Yeah, you just talk shit about Andrew.
Yeah,
there's nothing bad to say about that guy. So, no, let's wrap here. I think it was a good episode.
Cool. All right. Thanks, y'all, for listening. I don't know how we usually close this out, but maybe subscribe on YouTube, leave a comment, maybe ask us a question on there. I don't know if we asked that for a while.
Go follow Brad on Twitter and DM him with your landing page questions.
Yeah, please just blow up my DMs.
Cool.
All right,
thanks for listening.
Thanks for tuning in. See ya. Let me stop. There it is.
The only way that we grow this podcast is by you sharing it with your friends. Honestly, like reviews kind of don't really mean anything too much anymore. They're really meaningful, but they don't do a lot for the growth of the podcast. And so sharing YouTube links, sharing Spotify links, sharing Apple, whatever we call it under the podcast app now, anything you can share, the better we're going to be. Guys, anything else you want to say on this?
Yeah, please go check us out on YouTube. Rack up those views for us. We'd love to see it. And then subscribe. Make sure to subscribe on YouTube as well.
And I relentlessly refresh the YouTube comments because it dictates my mental health for the day. So please say something nice about all of us.
Thank you, everyone.
Thanks,
Thank
everybody.
you for listening, honestly.